Thank you, Sam, for that beautiful choo-choo. Good morning. Welcome to First Universalist Church of Yarmouth. My name is Stu Guernsey, and I am a member of our Board of Trustees. I'm so glad to be greeting you this morning. A warm welcome to friends gathered here in our sanctuary, as well as to our friends joining us virtually on Zoom. At First Universalist, our mission is to explore our faith, embrace this community, and to engage the world as spiritual seekers. May we take these words to heart. If this is your first time to our congregation, welcome. We invite you to fill out a connection card located in front of you in your pew, so we may connect with you with events and programs that interest you. You can drop this in the offering plate when it is passed later in our service. For those joining us with young children, nursery care is available during our service for babies and toddlers. Our nursery is located out this side door and down the hallway on the left. Following our time for wonder in the service, our children are invited downstairs for Children's Chapel. Before we begin this morning, we have two announcements. Given the recent spread of COVID and other illnesses, we are strongly encouraging mask wearing during our service today. We do have masks available. If you would like one, just raise your hand and an usher will be by to pass them to you. Out of an abundance of caution, we also will not be having coffee hour after our service today. You are more than welcome to stay and mingle outside in the gorgeous winter wonderland, though. And next up, an update on our annual campaign from our board president, Sarah Whitty.
Good morning. Oxygen. This was probably preaching to the choir, but I might reach somebody somewhere. Just wanted to give you an update. It's mostly really good news. This year we named our annual campaign Love at the Center, because love is the energy that we create and offer to the world. And love comes from our center. It helps us create this free and fearless community, and it welcomes us right back when we're tired and hurt, back to love and back to the heart. This kind of brave, kind love is what makes us UUs. It's an important part of it all. So with only a few days left to go in our Love at the Center campaign, I'm happy to tell you that we are incredibly close to our goal. It feels like a great big wow and a thank you and a big yes. This is why I brought this up. Yes, 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 yes. Yes for all the brave, kind love that we're sharing here, for the brave, kind justice that we offer to the world. So I celebrate all of that generosity. Here's the update. We have 37 perennial commitments, 21 annual commitments, and 7 new commitments this year. Folks, that's huge. That's amazing. Yeah, right. Yeah, and thank you, Hillary, right? Because we really like being here with each other. Now we're just waiting and hoping to hear from about 12 more families, and we're looking for about $8,000 more to meet our goal of $170,000 in commitments. And I know that's a lot of numbers, but just think about it. 12 more commitments, $8,000, that's a little gap. We can do it. We really can do it. And every bit counts. So let's do that as we fund our mission and pay for our wonderful minister, incredible staff, and we keep the lights on for liberal faith in Yarmouth. So if you haven't made your commitment, you can go to our website, click on the confidential giving form, or send Marge or me an email. Thank you so much. Woohoo! I really am very grateful to everybody who stepped up. This means we're going to have an incredible year ahead. So thanks for that.
And now I invite you to take a deep breath as we settle into this time together. Our music director, Sam Chandler, will now lead us into worship.
Hi, good morning. What a beautiful day out there. Yes? Anybody a little sore? Kind of sore? Like a little sore in here? Yeah. That was a lot of shoveling yesterday. 15 inches, they say. How fitting, 15 days till spring. 15 days till spring. Friends, I'm Reverend Hillary. I serve as the minister here at First U, and it is with peace and friendship that I say, whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, whatever it is you have done, whether you are looking forward to getting out for a ski this afternoon, or looking forward to staying inside and flipping through your seed catalog, you are welcome here, and we're so glad you're here. Friends, happy March. Our theme for this month is vulnerability, a beautiful theme for this liminal, muddy month between winter and spring, a time of subtle change and tender growth and fragile hope. A month, they say, is in like a lion and out like a lamb. We shall see, but that first part certainly rings true this morning. Today in our service, we'll consider vulnerability in light of our covenantal faith and the promises we make with ourselves and with each other that help us do the very, very hard spiritual work of being vulnerable, work that is most certainly centered in love. To set us on this loving and open path, our words of invocation this morning are by the poet Rosemary Watola Traumer. One of you shared this poem with me this week because it reminded you of our loving actions and aspirations this winter, and I completely agree. The poem is entitled, "The Question." All day I replay these words. Is this the path of love? I think of them as I rise, as I wake my children, as I wash dishes, as I drive too close behind the slow blue Subaru. Is this the path of love? I think of these words as I stand in line at the grocery store. Think of them as I sit on the couch with my daughter. Amazing how quickly 6 words become a compass, the new lens through which to see myself in the world. I notice what the question is not. It's not, is this right? Not, is this wrong? It just longs to know how the action of existence links us to the path of love. And is it this all day? I let myself be led by the question. All day I let myself not be too certain of the answer. Is it this? Is this the path of love? I ask. And I wait for the next word to come. Good, bright, and new morning, my friends. As we follow the path of love together, let's turn to our neighbors now and say hello. Ask them how they're doing. Friends, will you rise in body and spirit with me now and join in singing our opening hymn, number 4, I Brought My Spirit to the Sea.
I brought my spirit to the sea. I stood upon the shore. I gazed upon infinity. I heard the waters roar. And then there came a sense of peace. I whispered, calm my soul. Some ancient ministry of stars had made my spirit whole. I brought my spirit to the trees that bloomed against the sky. I touched each wandering, careless breeze to know if God was nigh. And then I felt an inner flame that fiercely burned my tears, and right I rose from bended knee to weeply asking ye.
And please remain standing, my friends, as Stu leads us in the unison affirmation.
We are united in seeking to increase love with justice and to constitute a free church open to all people. Mindful of our past and drawing upon modern knowledge, we respond to the spiritual needs of persons and are devoted to the common good in community, nation, and world. We cherish the integrity of each individual and search for truth with reason as our guide. We respect differences of opinion and strive to be a democratic community. We are concerned with this world and open to the future.
I would like to invite any kiddos or those young at heart forward to help me light the chalice now. Hey, Mac. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. Can I tell you a story
Sure.
this morning? It's a story called The Cracked Pot. Have you ever heard of this story?
No.
Okay, so I guess you're not going to help me tell the story.
Nope.
Okay, that is fine. That is fine. Does anyone here know the story of the cracked pot? Maybe. Great answer. Great answer. So, once upon a time, there was a woman who lived by a river, and from the river, she got all the water that she needed for her day. And she was very busy, and it was kind of it was a big, tiring process to go get this water, but it was very important for her each day. And she would do so by taking a long wooden pole and resting it on her shoulders and putting one pot on one side and one pot on the other side.
Okay.
Okay?
I can see this.
And so she walks down to the river carrying these two pots, and she fills the pots with water in the river, and then she carries the pots back home. And she does this at dawn every single day because she has so many other things she has to do in her day, so she starts her day off well. And then she probably goes home and has a nice cup of coffee with the water. Okay. Whew. And so one of these pots is a beautiful, perfect pot that holds a lot of water. And one of these pots is cracked. And so that pot barely has any water left in it by the time she gets home. But she just doesn't have time to go get another pot. And so this is her practice each day, and she tries to hurry along to get as much water as she can. And this pot, my friends, this pot, Mac, this cracked pot, he feels terrible about himself. He feels like he is such a disappointment, such a loser pot.
Aww.
I know. And it just builds up from day to day as he's just like leaking out all the water on the walk home and getting home, and there's none left. And so one day, as the woman is bending down to fill this pot with water, this cracked pot, he says to her, "Hey, I am so sorry for the way I am. I am so sorry that I am cracked. I just feel like a big mistake, such a disappointment." And the woman says, "Hey, don't worry about it. On our walk home, I want you to look down at the ground beneath you," because this pot has eyes and can talk.
Of course. As pots do.
I know. It's like not that much of a loser pot if he has eyes and he can talk, but whatever. He's a magic
It's a
pot.
magic pot.
There's too many spoilers, Aubrey, too many spoilers. We'll get there. And so they're walking back, and he's looking down at the ground, and he sees the sun shining on the ground and all of these beautiful, colorful flowers growing, and bees and butterflies flitting around them. And he's like, "Oh, the world is so beautiful and perfect, and I'm not. I'm a cracked pot." And they get back home, and the woman says, "Did you look at the ground?" And he was like, "Yeah, it was beautiful. It was perfect." And she's like, "You made that possible. Do you know that?" And he was like, "How?" And she said, "I love that you have a crack because I've been planting seeds along our walk. And the seeds I've planted underneath your side have all blossomed. You're a part of the perfection of this world." And he said, "Oh," and it all made sense, right? And so then they all lived happily ever after. It was just flowers and butterflies and a little bit of water and a little bit of water for the earth. It was perfect.
I love that story.
It's nice, right?
It's beautiful.
What does it mean to you? Does it mean anything to you?
Well, there have certainly been days where I feel like a cracked pot.
Yo. Yes.
Sometimes Aubrey feels like a cracked egg that's been eaten up. I also have felt that way too. But I think what I learned from this story is even on the days where you feel like you're not doing anything for the world. Some days you feel like a very good egg.
Yeah.
And we're all imperfect in our own ways,
Yeah.
but we do good for the world.
And those imperfections make a lot possible in this world that we might not be aware of,
Wow.
but they help with collaboration. We're better together. All right, that's the story of the crackpot, everybody. It's also a story that goes back to our seed catalogs, which I'm pretty excited about. What are y'all doing in Children's Chapel today, Mac?
We are continuing to play with clay. We're creating some characters that remind us of bravery.
Ooh, all right. Well, shall we say our children's blessing, and
I
then you
think
all can
we
get to it?
shall.
Great.
Right. We are Unitarian,
Universalists, people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. Go in peace, little friends.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Starkle, and I'm here to give you my spotlight on stewardship. Prior to moving to Maine, I spent a few of my summers in Yarmouth. My first few friends told me about the Maine Farm supper at the church one weekend and asked if I'd like to go. We arrived a bit late. We arrived after the event had started and had to wait for a table to be freed up. We hung around the kitty corner outside the kitchen and wanted to share a bottle of wine, and the hostess, who was Ruth White, found us a few glasses. So we found a little corner in the kitty corner, and we were talking and laughing, and it was really a joyful experience. Everyone was smiling and gracious. After being seated, I found myself sitting across from a couple from South Paris. They had seen the advertisement and decided to come to the supper. It was so much fun. When I moved up here to live full-time, I wanted to be involved in the preparation of the Maine Farm suppers because I enjoyed it so much. The first one was during COVID-19, and all the dinners had to be prepared to go. The team, led by Cindy Guernsey, did a terrific job, and all the proceeds went to the food pantry. My job was to do the shopping, and I helped pack up food for people to take out. My impression then was how wonderful it was to work together after the isolation, and it was joyful. And that's my story. And by the way, the next Maine Farm Supper is March 25th, just a few weeks away, and I hope you will all be there. I am honored to be on the Stewardship Committee, as it does so much for the well-being of First U and for our community. Thanks.
Thanks, Debbie. Friends, we now come to the time in our service that we set aside for quiet prayer and meditation. This can be a time to reflect on the events of the past week, look forward to what might come in the days ahead, offer a prayer of loving kindness to someone in need of loving kindness, or simply be here now in the fullness of this moment. Following our time of quiet, I'll ring a chime, and all will be welcome to come forward to light a candle for a joy, sorrow, or concern you hold today. Stu will now introduce our offering. Thanks, Stu.
This week, we share our plate with Portland Outright, a youth-led organization building the power of young people aged 14 to 25 in Maine's LGBTQ+ communities. Portland Outright provides resources to alleviate day-to-day struggles of young participants in areas such as labor justice, racial justice, and prison reform. Using visual arts-based activism and community organizing, Portland Outright creates spaces where young people are designing, steering, and participating in actions, campaigns, and community projects, which can lead to lifelong participation in movements for justice while cultivating the leadership of LGBTQ+ young people. For those in the sanctuary this morning, we will be passing the offering plate to one another. For those gathered with us online, you are invited to make your offering using the donate button in the order of worship. You may also make your offering by dropping a check in the mail. Thank you.
Dad, why did you let that man push you around like that? You shoulda beat him down, down to the ground for that. He said, son, you're still young, and you always jump the gun. There's real people in those big trucks that you flip off when they get in the road. You get so hacked, but you pay no mind to the great big sign that says oversized load. You really think they can go as fast as you in your 87 Trans Am? I know you're in such a terrible rush, but they're going just as fast as they can. Dad, I guess I don't understand what driving big trucks has to do with that man. You shoulda taught him a lesson about being rude, about talking to you with such an attitude. He said, son, you're still young, and you always jump the gun. There's real people in those big trucks that you flip off when they get in the road. You get so hacked, but you pay no mind to the great big sign that says oversized load. You really think they can go as fast as you in your 87 Trans Am? I know you're in such a terrible rush, but they're going just as fast as they can.
Will you join us in our song of thanksgiving? Thanks, Sam. Our reading this morning is the Covenants of the Northern New England chapter of the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association, a chapter to which I and all the ministers of Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire belong. We covenant to support one another in the work of ministry. We want to be together as our best selves with our best behavior. We want each other's help, radical honesty to see the truth more clearly, radical hospitality to open us to one another. We want to be accountable to ourselves and to each other because we want to be able to be vulnerable with each other. And we will not exploit each other's vulnerabilities, and we will be forgiving. We want a lightness of heart and a depth of spirit. We know it's complicated. We know there are differences among us in power, in practice, in belief. We know this covenant requires presence and kindness and mindfulness and courage. We come together to share gifts, the depth of our wisdom and experience, the clarity of our vision, the strength of our hope. Covenant. The word covenant springs from the Latin root convenio, which means to assemble or convene. The participle of the word convenientis also means to agree. And of course, convenientis is also the root of convenient, a word that connotes ease, accessibility, something that fits and is doable. Over time, with the help of the Abrahamic scriptures, covenant has come to be defined as a promise, typically a very solemn, holy promise between people and often God. Covenant, a careful, accessible agreement that convenes a group of people. Simply put, covenant is about being in relationship. Our faith, Unitarian Universalism, is a covenantal faith, a relational faith. We do not convene under a shared creed, a static and supreme theological system or order. Rather, our faith is a living one. It changes, as we are witnessing right now with the proposed revisions to our principles and purposes. We covenant as you use because we are committed to enacting a shared vision. A vision of a beloved community where the values of love, transformation, justice, interdependence, equity, pluralism, and generosity flourish amongst all beings. Our covenants are agreements we make with one another about how we want to be in relationship as we move towards this vision of peace and friendship. And even more importantly, our covenant is an agreement we make with one another so we move towards this vision of peace and friendship. For the agreements in a shared covenant ideally will reflect and propel our beloved vision forward. Covenants help us start living these values, planting and tending the seeds of beloved community now, together, so that the peace and friendship we want to cultivate in the world becomes a real possibility. Many UU churches have written their own covenants. Many employ one written by our Unitarian ancestor, Reverend James Vila Blake, and recite it together every Sunday. You've probably heard it, possibly even spoken it before. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Anyone heard that one before? Yeah, seen some, oh yes, no, yes, that's great. That's what's great about us, all over the place. And some churches, like ours, don't have a congregational covenant. And that's okay. That can be for many reasons. Some churches lean into the living faith of it all and resist nailing down one specific agreement. Some lean into their church bylaws. Some use different covenants from week to week. There are many out there. And very sadly, some churches have been harmed by covenants, or rather harmed when people use covenants in punishing, power-grabbing, or exclusionary ways. Though we here at First U don't have a congregational covenant per se, we do have the unison affirmation, which reads in many ways like a covenant. We are united in seeking to increase love with justice and to constitute a free church open to all people. Mindful of our past and drawing upon modern knowledge, we respond to the spiritual needs of persons and are devoted to the common good in community, nation, and world. We cherish the integrity of each individual and search for truth with reason as our guide. We respect differences of opinion and strive to be a democratic community. We are concerned with this world and open to the future. Pretty solid, right? It's pretty good. Notice the openness of it. There is space for change in there, for evolving experiences and understandings. A free church, open to all, the common good, past and modern knowledge, spiritual needs, differences of opinion, this world and the future. Lots of space. And notice the verbs. It's so action-oriented. Respond, devoted, cherish, respect, search, strive. And then there's the relationality of it all. Each line begins with we. And we are talking about being united, about community, nation, world, about individuals, democracy, difference. Our unison affirmation. Is it our covenant? I'm not sure. It is certainly about how to enact a vision of beloved community. Would the meaning of our affirmation, the spirit of it, change if we called it a covenant? Don't worry, I'm not proposing that today. That's a big conversation. And I respect the differences of opinion that may arise as a result of that hypothetical question. What I can say that I think we all can agree on is that our unison affirmation, in its openness, its call to action, and its relationality, is very UU. And just as an aside, to turn up this UUism a notch, more than one of you have told me about your personal variations on the unison affirmation. Lines dropped, words replaced, emphases shifted. The most common alteration I'm aware of is with the word reason in that line, and search for truth with reason as our guide. Some of you have told me that you sometimes skip this line, don't really know what it's getting at, or opt to use the words love or spirit instead. Very UU of you. I love it. Honoring our living faith. Though some of our very reasonable Unitarian ancestors might be rolling in their graves right now. We can discuss that at another time. Because today, what I'm getting at with all this covenant talk is our March theme of vulnerability, which stems from the Latin root vulnere, to wound. When I saw that our theme this month was going to be vulnerability, one of the first things that came to my mind was the covenant of the UU Ministers Association of Northern New England. This is the covenant, the relational agreement of the UU ministers of Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, a chapter to which I joyfully and gratefully belong. My friends, I have never spent time with a group of clergy who are so delightful, so kind, playful, so relational. Maybe it's the peaceful woods and waters that shape the regions that we serve. Maybe it's that many of us serve historically universalist churches like our own, churches built on the belief that there is inherent goodness in all people and that a place in heaven awaits every single one of us someday, no exceptions. Maybe this group of delightful ministers is just luck, or all of our prayers answered. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, though, if our covenant has something to do with it. I'll read it again. We covenant to support one another in the work of ministry. We want to be together as our best selves with our best behavior. We want each other's help, radical honesty to see the truth more clearly, radical hospitality to open us to one another. We want to be accountable to ourselves and to each other. Because we want to be vulnerable with each other, we will not exploit each other's vulnerabilities, and we will be forgiving. We want a lightness of heart and a depth of spirit. We know it's complicated. We know there are differences among us in power, in practice, in belief. We know this covenant requires presence and kindness and mindfulness and courage. We come together to share gifts. The depth of our wisdom and experience, the clarity of our vision, the strength of our hope. I'm pretty sure that everybody in our chapter loves this covenant. It was written collectively at one of our retreats in 2009, and some of you will appreciate this. We're not technically allowed to have it. All UU Minister chapters merged with the larger umbrella of the National UU Ministers Association a handful of years ago. And the UUMA has its own covenant, and we're supposed to use that one, not our own. But everyone likes ours so much, we keep using it instead. Don't tell. Is this being recorded? I'm glad we use it. I think it's so beautiful. I think it's so beautiful. Whenever we gather for board meetings or annual meetings, monthly check-ins, spring or fall retreats, we begin our time together by reading this covenant aloud, sometimes in unison, sometimes with each person taking a line. Some of us, like you all with the unison affirmation, are really drawn to certain lines and always like to read those ones in particular. I really like the lines, "We want a lightness of heart and a depth of spirit." Lightness of heart and depth from spirit at stage left. It's okay. I also love the line, because we want to be vulnerable with each other. We will not exploit each other's vulnerabilities, and we will be forgiving. It's so good. It's so relational. So tenderly, intimately relational, because this line implies that we know each other's vulnerabilities, because either we've talked about or shared them with each other, or because we're paying attention to each other's affect, each other's lives, each other's churches and passions and joys and sorrows and concerns. There is such care and interest present in this aspiration. And that final clause, "we will be forgiving," whew, this to me speaks to an intention to be in dialogue, to stay invested, connected, to hold each other accountable with love. The whole thing makes so much possible in relationships, I feel. It allows us to take the risk of being vulnerable in the first place, which is so valuable because there is such an intense phobia of vulnerability in our society. We see this phobia all the time in macro ways, broadcasted loud and clear. The massive 1.7 trillion chunk of the US budget we spend on military. The fact that there are more guns in our country right now than people. The blockbuster, macho superhero movies the rising rates of drug and alcohol abuse, the aggressive control we try to have on education, identity, speech, the books available for kids to read in libraries. And we also know this phobia, this resistance to vulnerability in small, subtle, personal ways. Our tendency and expectation to respond fine when someone asks how we are, to apologize or hide our tears if we cry or resist crying altogether. We see our fear of vulnerability and our addictions to perfectionism and busyness, and our inability to ask for help, and our attempts to control our bodies, our aging process, our hunger, our energy levels. For the vast majority of us, being vulnerable, feeling fragile, unproductive, exposed, out of control, too much, too little, is unbearable. And ironically, we go to unbearable lengths to avoid it. Lengths that leave us hungry, exhausted, lonely, violent, riddled with hatred, limited in our belief systems, addicted to all sorts of escape routes. But something about our survival instincts and our rather aggressive, perfectionistic, comparison-driven culture make these alternatives more attractive than simply being vulnerable, being fallible, fragile, impermanent. In a word, being what we are, human. Because we want to be vulnerable with each other, we will not exploit each other's vulnerabilities, and we will be forgiving. The Trappist monk Thomas Merton taught that we should pay attention to what we do that cultivates our sense of inner peace and what we do that destroys it. Like so many choices we have in our daily lives, the question of being vulnerable with others is a question about being at peace. But to be, or not to be, vulnerable often feels like a catch-22. If we are vulnerable, we might be rejected, critiqued because of it, and that will feel awful. Wounding, you might say. But keeping ourselves on lockdown certainly takes a toll too. Not just on our hearts and bodies and minds, but on our lives. And the connections, the creations, the imperfections, the cracks in our pot that enable new growth, new possibility, real possibilities to emerge. So how best to proceed as our vulnerable selves along this double-edged sword? Be who you are. Cherish your integrity. Respond to your spiritual needs. Devote yourself to good. Have a lightness of heart and a depth of spirit. Be forgiving. What cultivates a sense of inner peace? Self-love and self-acceptance. The practice of vulnerability, my friends, is a spiritual one. It is the path of love, as it requires accepting and celebrating the truth of life, which is that you and I are not static or absolute as we are right now. We are living. You and I are life. And life is constantly changing. Sometimes in really weird, messy ways, sometimes in beautiful symbiosis with others, sometimes painfully and disappointingly, sometimes perfectly and miraculously. Stay open, my friends. Stay in relationship. Stay active. Stay alive and living. And agree. Let's agree to always live with love. Let it be so. Let there be love. Amen. What's our closing hymn?
Join us for hymn number 1007 in your teal hymnal. Please rise and bow to your spirit. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. And it's telling me in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Thank you all so much for making the trek to church on this snowy morning. Thank you, Pete and Joanna, our tech crew, Mac, and thank you, Sam and Stu. Friends, will you join me in a closing time of prayer before we mingle outside in the winter wonderland? May all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings experience profound joy and the causes of profound joy. May all beings be able to live wholeheartedly, fully, with love. And will you join me now in the words of our unison benediction? For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, may life return your affection. For those who come to seek a path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step. Amen. Go in peace. Have a wonderful day, my friends.